Hello there, and welcome to the Impact Zone podcast. We are back again to talk more TNA wrestling shenanigans. And on this one, we are talking about pigeonholing new wrestlers. Now, I've heard this idea from a few people, which basically goes that you shouldn't have younger stars come into anything or anywhere or whatever, or have these young guys be heels, basically. You should always have these young guys be the baby faces so that they can, ingratiate themselves with the fans, get over, and whatnot. I feel like that's very pigeonholing people. And I've heard this said about like a few people here and there throughout time and throughout things. It mainly came up with the New Blood Rising angle, where they had all the young guys being effectively like heels, but they were meant to be in sort of a babyface role in some sense. But they're all heels because the fans didn't really want to cheer for them because none of them had really established themselves as strongly as what the main event guys had. So there was that clear divide there between them. And that's one way of saying, well, that was a silly way to book that storyline or to, just book that sort of an angle or whatever. But I do think that saying, again, all these guys should be baby faces, they already booked them to be baby faces. The fans just didn't accept it. They just rejected it because they were much more into guys like Hogan and Flair and Sting and all the other people that were kind of had established themselves on the roster than a lot of people that hadn't. So I think nostalgia was playing a role there. And again, just saying all people should do this or all people should do that is a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. You shouldn't pigeonhole people. Some people are much more able or much more natural baby faces than what they are heels. And yes, sometimes you can say, well, if you're a baby face forever, especially nowadays, or even a fairly long period of time, that can get very boring and very stale very quickly because, there's no progression to your character really. You're staying the same character, but the thing about that is that you should have some progression in your character as far as certain feuds or certain moments or certain things go, because like if you face, I don't know, if you're Ricky Steamboat and you face Ric Flair for the first time, now you're starting to know, hey, this guy cheats, or whatever. Or that or whatever. You've seen him on TV and he cheats. So, hey, you're not stupid, but you could still fall for those tricks, perhaps because you didn't see it coming, or because there's just too many distractions, too much going on. So it's like, well, what am I going to do here? That sort of thing, and whatnot. It's really tough, again, but still in saying that, you keep, learning more each time you sort of face him. Or when you face somebody else, you say, hey, it's again about tape study in a sense, not just tape study as far as wrestling goes. Like maybe straight away you wouldn't know, but the day after or whatever you should know, whatever it is, you should know that, hey, I can go back and watch the tape, and see what happened. I can see that this happened. And sometimes some people should be like, well, a win's a win. I know what happened. They shouldn't, denying it can be that good heel heat where you say, if somebody interviews you or whatever else, or somebody says, hey, you cheated or whatever, you shouldn't be like, yeah, like again, like denying it can be good heat, but you shouldn't really be denying it. You should just be saying, like, oh, well, that's the way the cookie crumbles, in a sense, and saying, well, the ref didn't see it, so, type thing. You can always find another out. You know, whereas saying, oh, deny it, deny it, deny it, you're denying reality. And there can be some people that can get kind of that way about things, just denying reality, like they're so delusional. But that only works for some people, and sometimes you can't do that all the time, because the evidence is right there. And if you are going to deny that, that it happened, then it's sort of like, yeah, that can, like for one person who's very into denial or whatever else, that can be their character trait or whatever. They're super into denial. But when it's like every single heel is doing it, like deny, 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 suddenly denying becomes like, well, that's not special. That's what all the heels do. If one person is super neurotic or whatever about it, then that becomes their trait. You're booking that person to be special, to stand out from the others, and again, saying that all of them should just, happily go along the same way or whatever else is saying the same thing, again, pigeonholing people, not letting people sort of be somewhere on a spectrum, make them every single person have something unique and special about them in the way they deliver their heel work. One person's more about denial, one, whatever it is. One person's more about, well, that's the name of the game, buddy, like you use the confines of what you can and whatnot, that are out there. I'm trying to get ahead, and I'm not doing anything wrong. Just, as far as I'm concerned, as far as you're concerned, maybe I did something wrong, but that's only because I screwed you over. If I had screwed over Steve over there, you wouldn't give a shit, And when I did screw over Steve, yeah, Steve gave a shit, but you didn't give a shit. So it only is morally wrong when it's applying to you, isn't it? Type thing. You can do all these sorts of things, and again, you can have like layered baby faces the same way. They don't all have to just be, again, perfectly good people, because again, I think people can be into some shades of grey, and again, I think, that helps with people turning between babyface and heel. Like, when you're heel, it's hard because the idea is to get as maximum heat as what you can, so you have to be as despicable kind of as possible. But again, you can still take that despicable sort of stance in a certain way. You could, like I said, you don't have to just be a person that lives in denial or whatever it is, which is not just a river in Africa. But, like you could take it in a certain way, You could be delusional in another way, You could be delusional in the way of, a win's a win's a win, or, so over super confident all the time that, you're again, like letting people, and trying to toy with your food, so to speak, kind of thing, like, like you're not trying to finish people, like now you're not trying to win, in the sense you're just trying to humiliate somebody, or whatever it is, because you think you're so much superior, and then you have so much trouble because you're going, oh man, maybe I should have just finished this kid, and now he's, fighting back, and now what am I going to do? Like, obviously that happens in a lot of heel versus face things. The baby face has always got to try to overcome the odds and whatnot, and the heel's always got to be trying to shut that down and trying to, kind of change things up. But again, same thing for anyone, really. It's just like, if you're like, they take the example of somebody new to TNA in Ace Austin at the time. He was a heel when he first came in, and I think that worked well for him. Later on, he turned babyface, and the Rascals, I believe, they were babyfaces when they first came in, but they turned heel later on in their run, Wes, not Wes. What's his name? Oh God. I'm thinking of Wes, but no, it's not Wes. It's Trey Miguel. There we go. He turned heel on his own, more or less, as being a single star, and then when Wes came back, they were heels together, and then they sort of transitioned into being faces. So again, it's not just saying everyone who's this or who's young or whoever comes in is a babyface. We'll work with everyone to say, okay, well, we're going to bring you in as a heel, and this is what we're going to do with you, and we're going to, put the X Division title on you, and we're going to try to build the division around you. It's how you're treated. It's not what character role you're doing. I think, again, saying pigeonholing people into either role. It doesn't matter which role you think people should be in. It doesn't matter if you're saying all these people should be in this role or all these people should be in that role, then that really hurts anyone else who comes in who's better as a heel or whatever else. I think that MJF, when he came in to AEW, I think it didn't make any sense that he was a babyface. I think people knew that he was a scumbag and whatnot. So it's what? Let's just make him a heel, and they turned him heel fairly quickly. And he's a great heel, and I think he should have just debuted effectively as a heel. I think that would have been better. I think it would have made it they could have made sense if they had have just, done things a little bit differently or whatever it was. It sort of starts becoming an issue later on, because it was here's another heel for Cody to fight. Here's another heel for Cody to fight. Here's another heel for Cody to fight. That debuted from, most of them debuted from WWE, like Malachi Black or Aleister Black, and things like that. And it was he's got to fight all these guys. He's the gatekeeper of AEW or whatever it is, this sort of thing. Which, not to say that it couldn't work, but after a while, you do that a couple times, it starts becoming we've kind of seen this. And if you're starting to tell a narrative, you could start doing that. Again, it does become one of those things that it's well, we've already seen somebody do this sort of thing to Cody. So it's this is no longer impactful because we've already seen this, this person in this regard. Same happened with kind of how WWE would debut people from NXT. They usually debut them with Dolph Ziggler or something like that. So one of the lower card jobber people that were there. It's we've kind of seen this before because you keep doing effectively the same thing. You put them with the same few people or whatever else when they come to debut. And they get the same sort of early sort of momentum or whatever else it is. And then it sort of just peters out and they go nowhere because they don't know what to do with them. Or they don't know how to book a mid-card, sort of thing, or they don't really care because they're just well, all we care about it, again, is, the top guys, And that's the problem, again, when people say, if you're going to have somebody challenge for the title, blah, 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 this sort of thing. it doesn't matter. You know, like, it does not matter. Like, you can do whatever you want to do to get somebody to the title. You know, as long as it suits them and their character or whatever you're trying to tell that story within. As long as you're doing something consistent with somebody, it's sort of like the level of consistency that some things get can, like, as I said, some things start becoming like, wow, we've seen this week in and week out for the last, like, few months. So it does become like, you know, you need to add layers to these things from people, and you need to give them other things to feed into. But again, some of these more subtle things, like, can be something that, yeah, okay, we've seen that, but it starts becoming like that's their thing per se. You know, you don't get to see that from anyone else. You don't get to see somebody just completely in denial about everything. They're in denial about everything. You know, they won't own up to anything. It doesn't matter what, you know, you do or how you try to present it to them or whatever else it is. Everyone does the same sort of thing, presenting, hey, look, you know, everyone saw it, you know, I've got the tape here, I can show it to you. I can show it to the ref. I can show it to the commentary. They saw it. Even the heel announcers saying, oh, yeah, I can see that, but whatever, doesn't matter. Still, you know, like, they'll go, nah, whatever. You know, like, this person, you know, their whole thing is denial, you know? Like, again, that's, like, specific to them. Always figuring something out to be like, you know, whatever, this is what this person does, or whatever it is, as a person is different to saying, okay, anyone who comes in, or whatever it is going to be treated this way, or what, in some regards saying, oh yes, everyone that comes in, everyone will be treated like a star, or everyone will be pushed the same, we're not going to play favorites, or whatever else it is, or blah blah blah, any of this stuff. Yeah, absolutely, that's different. But saying we're going to paint everyone with the same brush in coming in, or in certain angles, or in certain things, is just, again, recipe for disaster. You cannot look at everyone being, oh yeah, you should all be baby faces, or you should all be heels, or you should all be this, or you should all be that. No. Put some people as being heel and put some people as being babyface. Some people are going to work well as being babyface better, and some people are going to work being heels better. So knowing that they're a better heel and they can do that better, and that's probably their comfort zone, and saying, hey, well, our roster is full of baby faces, or whatever else it is, let's give them a whole bunch of these opponents to go through, and then make them special, make them the one that is going to take on someone like CM Punk, or someone like, I don't know, Nick Nemeth, or somebody like that, or whatever it is, or Moose, or whoever it is, or Roman Reigns, again, or whoever it is, whoever's your top dog. You know, you start going, right, we're going to start at a certain point of having this person get wins, you know, continue to build momentum, not just win against the jobbers. Yes, win against the jobbers, but win against a bunch of, you know, a lot of upper people. Like, you know, I don't know, like, it depends what era or time you're talking about, who the baby faces or who the heels are, and depending if they're a heel or a baby face. But again, like, this works really well for a heel, and it does work for baby faces, but still, like, you give them a whole bunch of, you know, baby faces just to absolutely wreck, like, kind of like they did with Braun Strowman, but he was more of a baby face. But again, you could do it either way, but still, you could do that and then say, right, they've beaten all these people, you know, like, and maybe that's not too significant, but then you're starting to say, well, they're on this streak, you know, who can stop them, you know, like, and the streaks have got to end again, but still, like, it's not, like, specifically so much a streak, they're just, like,
this guy's unstoppable. What, like, who's going to stop him? He's undefeated so far as he's been in the company. You don't need to keep a tally, like, of how many wins he's got. Like, he can even lose by DQ or by count out or something like that, or whatever else it is, just to keep him protected, rather than saying, oh, well, he lost by pin or submission, like, or like if he gets tossed over the top rope in a battle royal or something like that, like the Royal Rumble. That's a way to protect him. He didn't lose. He just got, eliminated. So again, you're kind of keeping him protected from, that issue of being like, oh man, what am I going to do now because I got beat? People still want to see this guy, perhaps, or whatever it is, like, because he hasn't lost. And is he going to be able to, then put them in, like, it depends. You might want them to win the Royal Rumble. I don't know. But again, then say, if he doesn't win the Rumble, like, put him in, like, Elimination Chamber and then let him, slaughter a whole bunch of people, like, on the way to the title. Then you're making this monster. Like, you're, like, put him in first and have him absolutely wreck, like, or maybe not, but have him absolutely wreck the field. Like, absolutely wreck the field. And then just be like, okay, cool. He pinned literally everyone. He pinned everyone in that match. He beat everyone up, even if they were a bit beat up before. But still, like, he beat everyone. Everyone, including, like, some guys that were, like, feared and worried about or whatever else. He beat them up. It's easier when you have names to sort of say, like Brock Lesnar or Goldberg or whatever, but still, like, anyone can do. You start saying, oh, this, Solo Sikoa, he looks like a menace, to society, like, who's going to stop him? Like, you can take that and go from there. They debuted him as a heel. They debuted Tama Tonga and Tangaloa as heels. Like, and again, perhaps they're not younger stars, perhaps, again, but again, just saying again, if you're going to bring somebody in, the idea of bringing them in as either as a face or as a heel, whichever way, doesn't really matter. Like, if you're going to paint everyone in the same vein, it's not good. It's just, laziness or, lack of understanding of who is this character, what do we want them to do, or what do we need them to do, or what will they be better at doing. If we're going to bring this person in as a heel, and then they're naturally, like, the fans are, like, reacting to them, and they're getting, like, babyface reactions, then saying, oh, well, our initial thought was this, so we were wrong, and now we're going to turn them babyface or turn them the other way, or, they were, babyface, but everyone's reacting to them like a heel. Hey, well, we're going to turn them the other way. Okay. Is there any harm or foul in that? I don't think there really is. But again, I think anyone who thinks, like this pigeonhole mentality, like, they've got to change their mindset of saying, no, these people should do this and they should do that. No, they shouldn't. Like, they should figure out, okay, Sting is very, very over. Sting is a great babyface. Ric Flair is an amazing heel. Like, don't have them on the same, like, exactly the same side in a sense. Like, have them in, not a faction, but have them in a class effectively. Like, start considering them as a unit in storyline. Not in storyline, but as, like, in theory in storyline. They are the quote-unquote main eventers. They are quote-unquote the old-timers, so to speak, or whatever else it is. These are the guys, Hulk Hogan, whoever else, Sid Vicious, etc., whoever else you've got there, and say, right, well, they are these guys that are, the main eventers, whatever club, whatever it is, again, the main event mafia, whatever it is. They, like, you can do that, but again, like, you've got to figure out why you're doing something. Like, instead of just, like, we're going to slap this together and see how it goes, or whatever it is, or just hope that people, don't cheer for the bad guys, even though they were just cheering for them like a few weeks ago without like any real explanation, and now they're expected to boo them just because we told them to, or whatever else it is, or we're meant to just cheer these young guys that we have no investment for just because we were told to. Like, that's a silly way to, again, do things. But if your theory is to do that, then you're going to wind up in these situations of saying, these guys should be in this position, or these guys should be in that position, like as far as heel babyface dynamics go. No. You should say, okay, well, we're going to have like somebody that was like Sting back in the day come in to face Ric Flair, a young babyface, and, they're going to look good by having to face Ric Flair. And then they're going to win. Like, they're going to beat, like, they're going to have the Four Horsemen. Like, they're going to have to go through the Four Horsemen. They're going to have to go through Flair and beat him. And then it's going to be a big culmination. And then they're going to go on and maybe win the title after that, or whatever else it is, Or maybe Flair is the champion, or whatever else it is. Again, saying that that's what we're going to do with this person. Or we're going to bring in this heel for Sting to face, like, or whatever else it is. Or we might bring in somebody that's, I don't know, like Vampiro. Like, you can say, okay, well, this isn't really a babyface or a heel character. They're kind of in this gray space kind of thing, but they kind of have a feud going because of something or whatever else it is. And then you build the feud around that. And then finally, somehow, some way, the young guy does get over on Sting or whatever else it is. Or, again, you start moving some of these guys into other areas, into the tag team space. Put somebody with Flair as far as, like, a tag team partner, much like, Arn Anderson, but a young guy or whatever else it is, or somebody else, whatever it is, from the Four Horsemen days. Like, have somebody come along and say, okay, this is this new star that Ric Flair is mentoring, and he's going to be his tag team partner or whatever it is. Kind of like what they were trying to do with him and Carlito. That was kind of a cool idea, but it never kind of really got anywhere, and it never really like finished up or did what it was meant to do. But the idea is there. Just use these guys in a role and try to make the best of it. Like, much like Batista and Randy Orton, have the established guys working with these young guys and being like, okay, they're associated with these like legends or these icons, or even like working against them, like when you've got Chris Benoit or Eddie Guerrero or whoever else it is, working with these guys and being in that, like, again, give them a few main events. Like, they don't have to win them, but again, like this is one of the problems about like old wrestling as well. They did a lot of dusty finishes back in the day, and people forget about that. But now, like, especially with TV, like, yes, you can still do dusty finishes per se, but you have to kind of have them lead somewhere and have a payoff for them. You have to give the fans what they kind of want to see. They want to see a resolution to this. You can't just, forget about these things and then move on or whatever else it is. Again, same sort of thing. But again, like, as well, when you do it week after week, week after week, month after month, for a long period of time, year after year, it's like, these guys never get like the wins, or there's never a conclusive ending to these things. It's always somebody runs in and then there's a brawl at the end. Like, sometimes at the pay-per-views, there's conclusive ends to some of these things, whatever else it is, but like, for the most part, like, it's the same old shtick still, like, where there's not really a conclusive end. And sometimes you can do that for a rematch. Like, if you're saying, well, we want this rematch between these two, that's perfectly fine, or whatever else it is. But again, if you say, we're not, we don't know how we're going to finish that off, it's like, this is a best of three in a sense. This is a best of three, like with Sting and Hogan. Like, Have Sting win the first one. Obvious. Like, it's hard to say that Hogan should win the second one because then it might be like he wins the belt. So it's like, well, that's no good because, again, it's hard to not have the title on the line, but it's also hard to have the title on the line when it's like, well, we're going to have Sting win the third one, and that's only a few weeks after that or whatever it is. So then it's like, well, why are we flip-flopping and hot potatoing this title? Like they did that with Mankind and The Rock, and it kind of worked, but doing that all the time or whatever else it is doesn't work. It sort of worked because that was a sort of one-off sort of thing that they did at that time, and they did it to try to, ingratiate The Rock as being like this tough guy, or tougher than what he was perceived to being, able to hang with somebody who was as hardcore as Mick Foley and whatnot, and that sort of thing. So it wasn't just, again, and that's something that you need to do, not just building people from, from out of nowhere. You need to build them from wherever they are at the bottom of the card to the mid card. Then you need to build them from the mid card to the top of the card. And then when they're at the top of the card, you need to legitimize them in that top of the card. And then when they're at the top of that card, they need to have a couple of runs at the top of the card because, once The Rock is popular, or once this person's popular, you've got to be able to be drawing money from them as being a main eventer. Same with Hogan, same with anyone else. This is the same formula that you should try to use. You've got to have these guys that can try to legitimize other people and be selfless and say, well, maybe I'll get 1 or 2 runs here and there, or maybe I'll get a main event here and there, or whatever else it is. But I'm doing this for the good of the company. I'm not just here for my own, selfish reasons. I am here for my own self and whatnot, but at the end of the day, I will do the job for somebody else because they will be much more of a superstar and they'll bring in much more money than I will ever do. And, if I can help that along, then I'm doing good because they're doing good and the company's doing good. So having that perspective of understanding this is not just about me, and having, and people do criticize the early days of TNA for this, but thing is, that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to say, these young guys, AJ Styles and these guys, and, whoever else is there, we're trying to push them up, and we're trying to make them not just bottom of the barrel guys. No. Then we're trying them not to just be mid-card guys, and then we're trying them not to just be main eventers and being legit main eventers. Like, in whatever role that we're giving them, for now, until like they really are somebody that we can depend upon to be that draw. And whatnot. That's what it takes to be the true top guy. You can hold the title here and there, or you can do something else to try to get people to go, nah, this guy can go and this guy can do it. I do think that sometimes they made mistakes with that and whatnot as well. But again, and I do think that the Hogan era is probably the worst era of some of that sort of stuff as well. But again, they did some good things here and there as well. I will give them that. But again, they did do a lot of things that, really centered around Hogan. And if you had have said, okay, well, what, like when you had Hogan in WWE a few years ago, he should have put over someone like Randy Orton, but he didn't. Like if you're going to have him win against Shawn Michaels and all these other people, okay, well, at least he lost to Randy, because then at least he got that rub and he made to be feel like he's really on his path now to being, to something big or whatever else it is. Not even Shawn Michaels could have beat him and, beat Hogan like a few years ago, whatever it was. And all of this. So now, like, he's taken that mantle of beating Hogan, at SummerSlam when he was, like, unbeaten before that. You've given him something to work with. You've given him a big win against somebody. same idea here. You're trying to say, it's not just we're going to give Hogan this win or whatever it is. No, we're going to give this win to Hogan because we've got a plan for him, hopefully, or whatever else it is down the line, so that he can give back to people and whatnot. So again, it's just one of those things of saying, yeah, that didn't work out, but if there was a plan there in place and it had came together, it would have been quite good, especially since it was like, well, is Hogan going to come back or whatever else it is, in being in that situation. But again, like, you talk about his TNA run, and it's like, well, if you're going to have him wrestle, which I don't think, was the best of ideas, again, it's like, save him for wrestling. Like don't just, have him wrestle randomly or whatever else it is with a few days build up or a few weeks build up maybe, or whatever it is, especially if it's on, free TV or whatever it is. It's like, build that up for months and months and months and months, build it up as much as what you can. Like, some of these things are like, well, we just decided it would do this, but then again, it's like, well, you should really known that that's what you were going to do and why you were going to do it, but still, like, again, there should have been a plan in place to do a similar thing, like saying, like, we're going to have this young guy come along and say, I'm going to destroy Hulkamania, or I'm going to destroy, the diamond, or the forever diamond of Ric Flair, or something, or whatever else it is in that era, or like having, what's his name, Black Machismo, Jay Lethal there going up against Flair and whatnot. He's got to beat Flair to get to AJ for the title or whatever else it is, something like that. And he's going to battle his idol or whatever else it is, but he's got to beat him and all of this, but he knows that he's the dirtiest player in the game and all this other stuff, blah, blah, blah. You're building that character and building a storyline for somebody else, to be like, oh man, like, he's overcome all these odds and he overcame Ric Flair, one of the greatest of all time, blah, blah, blah. Like, if you're using them in that story perspective of saying, this is what we're going to do and this is why we're going to do it, like, even if some people disagree with it, it's like, well, we can kind of see what you're going for here. It's at least something, perhaps it's not 100% necessary in some ways, but again, it's like, well, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to give this young kid or whoever it is some clout or whatever else it is. And again, it doesn't matter that Jay Lethal was a good babyface there at that time. You could have brought in anyone to face Hogan, and he could have been a heel. So you could have had these two sort of similar storylines of these young guys somehow overcoming the at that time very old guard, but again in different ways. One from a babyface side and one from a heel side. They feel similar. They're not the same, but they have that same sort of vibe because you're having these legends, these icons, Sting, whoever else, whoever it is. Again, if they can't really, get into shape, it's like, that's your problem. That's your fault. We told you we want you to have a match and we want it on this date. You have to get your ass in shape, Rick, or whatever it is. Same with Hogan. Same with anyone else. Get your shit in together and get yourself into shape. You guys talked about for years, especially Hogan, the saying your prayers and taking your vitamins and going to the gym and whatever else it was. Get out there and go to the gym, brother, Do that cardio because you're going to be in a match and this is what's going to happen. And this is why it's going to happen. It's not just, something because it's because we're trying to build this young guy and we need him to feel legit and whatever else. And you're here to be, that piece of that puzzle, So yeah. But anyway, guys, I think you guys mostly feel the same as I do, as saying that, you can do whatever you want with whoever you want. You can find whatever role that you want for whoever you choose to debut or whatever, or bring into your promotion, or return to your promotion. If like somebody was a babyface before, you can re-debut them as a heel. It's harder to debut somebody as a heel than as a babyface, or whatever, re-debut someone or return somebody, because like people are kind of like, oh, it's this guy that we haven't seen for months, like, oh, we're happy to see him. So it's easier to kind of go, well, the fans might be happy to see this person, so they might cheer for this person. So it's like, well, should we book them to be babyface? And that might be like something that you should consider, or at least considering the reaction and saying, well, then if they're going to cheer them, then we've got to get him out there and get him to get the heat. We've got to figure out how he's going to get the heat so that he can be booed and the fans will fall in line with what we want, what we think we want, the stories we want to tell for this person are, because he's more in that heel role. Or should we just go with a short-term babyface run, or whatever it is? Those are the decisions you should make. You shouldn't just say, oh, this is what we're going to do with everyone. No, you should just figure out what you're going to do with each individual, rather than as a collective group. But yeah, that's it for this one, you guys. Hope you've enjoyed this one, and hope you'll join me again in another one.